Hi, this is Dr. Gregory Sadler. I'm a professor of philosophy and the president and founder of an educational consulting company called Reason.io, where we put philosophy into practice. I've studied and taught philosophy for over 20 years, and I find that many people run into difficulties reading classic philosophical texts. Sometimes it's the way things are said or how the text is structured. But the concepts themselves are not always that complicated, and that's where I come in. To help students and lifelong learners, I've been producing longer lecture videos and posting them to YouTube. Many viewers say they find them useful. What you're currently watching is part of a new series of shorter videos, each of them focused on one core concept from an important philosophical text. I hope you find it useful as well. In Chapter 4 of On Interpretation, Aristotle is going to clarify that what he's really going to be focusing on throughout the rest of the work, having gotten discussion of nouns and verbs more or less out of the way, although they'll have implications coming up throughout the work, is what we can call propositions. There's different ways of translating it, and there's several different Greek terms, all very closely connected, that will get used and translated in English as proposition. So one of them is the noun apophanseis, kind of an abstract noun, right? And the other is apophantikos, which is technically speaking an adjective describing something that is propositional, right? But it'll often get translated as a proposition, which, it doesn't raise too many problems, I would say, within the text itself. And what's really important is he's going to distinguish propositions from other kinds of what we've translated typically as sentences, which are logoi, so speeches, right? Where you've got a noun and a verb, and perhaps some other things involved as well. Later on, he'll talk about the possibility of using what we've come to call the copula, the connector, the verb to be in one of its particular tenses. So what is so special about propositions? It's really key that it has truth or falsity in it. And, going to the text, you might expect to see aletheia, which is truth, and pseudos, which is, or pseude, which is, falsity or lie. But actually, in the sentence where he says this, he is saying, en ho to aletheoen e pseudesthai huparche. So huparche means to be present. So, and then the en ho, in the proposition, there is present what? Truth or falsity. But we could say this is a verb, and this is also a verb, truthing, the occurrence of truth, or the occurrence of falsity, the falsification, truthing or falsification, if we want to make up a new word, truthing, right? So that's what's really key to propositions. And if you want to render that as they just have truth or falsity within them, that wouldn't be too much of a problem, right? You're getting a little bit away from Aristotle's Greek, but it's a good way for us to conceptualize it. He tells us a few things that are really quite important about propositions. First of these is that a proposition has to include a verb, not just a noun. A mere expression is not going to cut it. And, he's going to, use examples of things where we're responding to a question and we might say, yes. Now, we don't say, yes, that is the case, right? Or we're asked, what is that over there? And we say, dog. Well, we're actually trying to signify that is a dog, and the is a verb, right? So he's going to say mere expressions are not going to really cut it. A verb, or as he's going to say, a tense of a verb must form part. Definitions are not propositions by themselves unless you include is, was, or will be, or something of that kind, some sort of verb. So that's an important part right there, right? And then he's going to make several important distinctions that are going to get unpacked a little bit later on in the work. So he's going to talk about propositions can be single, literally one, ace, right? Or many, poloi. And we could say, well, what does that actually mean for us? Well, a single, he says, propositions are single which indicate, deloi, point towards, a single fact, or are one, as we've said, by conjunction. The things are combined together, right? So that's one way for it to be the case. And then he says those are many, poloi, that indicate not one but many things, or have their parts not really conjoined, sundetoi, right? Not connected with each other. So that's one distinction we can make. And it's not the same distinction as being simple, haple, right? Or being composite, put together out of, we could say, multiple. He says one kind of proposition is simple, comprising all those that affirm or deny some one thing of another. The other is composite. That means composed, put together of other simple propositions. So if you're going to use and, or if then, or other kinds of connectives like that, you could say, well, then it's complex. So if I say Socrates is mortal, that's a simple proposition. If I say I don't have a cat, right, that's a simple proposition. If I say Socrates is mortal and I don't have a cat, both of which are true statements, by the way, we have a composite proposition, right? So I think that's pretty easy to wrap our heads around, and we're not going to worry too much about that at that point. Now, he's going to tell us about a simple proposition, because, simple propositions are the building blocks for complex propositions. Well, what is it? So it's a statement, or literally a sound, a phone, with meaning, semantike, just like nouns and verbs were also, and sentences themselves were semantike. They are meaning bearing. They symbolize or signify something. And it's going to be about something. So it's not just, entirely generic, we could say. He'll say, here we go, a simple statement or simple proposition is going to be peri tu, right? It's about some particular thing. And then it's translated here in a somewhat, possibly misleading way, affirming or denying the presence of some other thing in a subject in time, past or present or future. If we want to stick closer to Aristotle's actual text, it's saying that something is present or not, right? The Greek is actually peritu huparchen. So huparchen is to be present, t, something. A, me huparchen, or not to be present. So, can we understand that as affirmation or denial that something is present? Yeah, we can read that in, but it's not quite there in the text as such. And it's translated here as in time, past or present or future. That's not in the Greek. Instead, it's as the times determine, hoi chronoi dierentai. Right? So, of course, what kind of times do you have? Past, present, future. That's not that big of a leap. But, what are we actually thinking about here? So this is the generic formulation for what a simple proposition is. And then Aristotle is going to go a little bit further and explain, we could say, what flavors they come in. Two opposite flavors. We have affirmation, which is kataphaseis, and then we have negation, or we could say denial, apophaseis. And these are correlative terms, right? So once again, if I am going to say Socrates is mortal, that's a affirmation. Socrates is mortal. And it's actually saying Socrates is going to die sometime, because that's what being mortal means. If we say Socrates is not mortal, we could also say it in an affirmative way. Socrates is immortal. Athanatos will not die. But you notice athanatos is a privative, right? Not dying. So it's still kind of a denial or rejection or negation. That is an apophaseis. So the two of those go together. They're both propositions. And the text actually says is a statement. No, it's a proposition. Both of them are apophanseis, right? And here we get, the texts, English translations will typically say, affirming one thing of another. That's reading that in, but it's, again, perfectly fine to do so. Literally, it's tenos, kata, tenos. So the kata, you see that in the kataphaseis, right? You are speaking something down onto another thing, if we want to be very literal with the meaning of kata, or in accordance with another, right, is another way to understand kata. You're saying something about something, in accordance with another thing. You're saying something of that thing in relation to it. Socrates is mortal. A negation, an apophaseis. Now notice we're going to also have the same parallel of using a term, is a proposition that is one thing from another at the literal level. Tenos, apo, tenos. Apo means away, right? So you're taking something away from another, or you're saying, yeah, these things don't actually mix. Socrates is not mortal, right? Mortality and Socrates not mixing together. So you see how these work. And what we need to also remember is these are all propositions. So coming back to truth or falsity, a lot of what is going to be going on in the rest of the work is trying to figure out the truth and falsity, not just of propositions as such, but of affirmations and negations. Is the affirmation true? Is the negation true? Can they both be true at the same time? Can they both be false at the same time? Does the fact that maybe some of them are in the future affect that? These are all questions that are going to arise and get tackled in this text. And they will do so precisely because propositions, what is key to them is that they have truth or falsity in them. And so this gets us ready to then launch into many other really interesting facets, discussions, and complications having to do with propositions and their relations to each other.